is restaurant quality, just like the writing of one Tim Kawakami, the athletic, who joins us right now here on Willard and Dibs. All guests are brought to you on the Bud Light guest line. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Hey, Tim, what's cooking? How you doing?
Doing well, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I want to know what now. Were you in the room for the Shanahan and Lynch deal the other day?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so I like the vibe. A few things that people noticed. I think there was the obvious one when it comes up that Kyle Shanahan is being questioned, sort of in a way of like, do you injure your quarterbacks? He's going to get testy. I get that, but now, you know, Ann Killian writes an article about like that was disrespectful to Jimmy Garoppolo to dismiss the idea of his future here without saying something about it. What was your read on Kyle's demeanor and the way he put stuff out there?
No, he was edgy. He was tired. Clearly, you could tell from the moment he got out there. He kind of had John Lynch, who I'm sure was also tired, but certainly wasn't going to come off that grumpily. He was saying, Kyle needs a rest. He really works hard. He pours his heart into it, and just sometimes he's got to rest a little bit. So I think when you have the general manager doing in contemporaneous editorializing there, you kind of knew that Kyle was a little grumpy. He's probably been a little grumpy the last few days. Obviously, a long season, bitter loss. We're going through all the player stuff, but also when he's grumpy, he spits out the truth. So I don't mind it. I don't get my feelings hurt. If he bites back at me a little bit, that's okay. I think sometimes we get over obsessed about stuff like that. Deal with it. He'll be better in another day when he gets some rest, and then then there'll be another middling day, and then there'll be a rough day. But yeah, he was really blunt about Garoppolo. Garoppolo wasn't coming back. I mean, everybody kind of understood. Once Purdy emerged, that's the Garoppolo alternative. The guy who can get you to wins, who can figure out what to distribute the ball. Purdy probably is doing at a higher level, certainly on a cheaper contract and much younger. So, yeah, could Shanahan have been more diplomatic? Absolutely. For all the time that Garoppolo was here, or the games they won, but I don't take it to heart. I don't think it's just he was grumpy. There might have been something where, I don't know. I mean, where they had something where they both decided they weren't going to do this anymore. Jimmy Garoppolo was not available in the locker room the day after the season, so who knows? But I don't know. I like Jim Harbaugh. Those guys, I have no problem with bluntness. I have no problem if they're just, I have a problem if they lie. I have a problem if they mislead. And when Kyle's grumpy, he's not misleading. He's going to tell you exactly what he's feeling exactly at the moment. Does not mean that's exactly what he's going to feel like in 2 weeks, though, or in 2 months. And that's what Lynch, I think, was underlining. Like, hey, let's come back. This is what we're thinking right now, or it's what Kyle's thinking right now. And I don't think this Garoppolo thing's changing, although we've seen that change many times over the years in different ways. But I think about whether they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, whether where they feel about the team, what they're feeling about the Brock Purdy rehab. That could change. You don't know. The surgery hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. You don't know what they're going to find for sure in there. I think they need another quarterback. I asked Kyle about that, and he said, well, we got 2 starting quarterbacks, but they're both young and they're both hurt. So you just ran out of quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game. So I just think you saw him in the moment. That's kind of the way he is with the players sometimes. It's kind of the way he is with us. And I don't know, if feelings were hurt about it, so what? It's football. You move on to the next thing. He didn't mislead. He didn't lie. He didn't, he actually told us some information, and I appreciate that part of it.
Yeah, and it's a bad time, by the way, to run out of quarterbacks at the NFC Championship game, and it was just a terrible time for that to happen to the 49ers. But you talked about 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, when they do need another quarterback. Which route do you think they'll take? Do you think they'll look for another late-round draft pick or try to find one of these retread veterans, maybe a guy they've already had? Which way do you think they're going to go, Tim?
I'd do both. Maybe they're not going to because there are roster spots you have to think about. I'd do both. I mean, I'd look at a guy like Matt Ryan. That's not going to thrill anybody. There was one perfect candidate, right? We know that. It wouldn't have cost him any, a draft pick or in a trade, and he got Bay Area ties, and he happens to have won 7 Super Bowls, which probably would fit the situation, and he retired that morning. That might have led to a little bit of Kyle's snippiness, maybe. I think they would have looked hard at Brady. Beyond that, there aren't any sure thing, solutions. I don't think they're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers basically said that at Pebble Beach yesterday. they don't have draft picks. They can't make a big trade. Matt Ryan, again, he's not going to thrill the fan base, and I get it. He's not great, but he's playing the system. He can distribute the ball. I'm not saying he gets you to the Super Bowl, but that moment when you need someone else, if Lance isn't playing great or if Purdy isn't available, which is always possible, or they might get hurt while they're playing well, I think Matt Ryan, and Andy Dalton, again, these are not names that are going to thrill anybody, possibly including Kyle Shanahan, but they're workable solutions. And maybe draft another quarterback. Hey, you got Brock Purdy 7th round. Maybe, you take a Jay Kaner in the 5th. Just give yourself options for a team that's built to challenge for Super Bowls and literally ran out of quarterbacks. I don't think it's a problem if you just pile up a bunch of them and have them on hand. Again, there's roster spots. You don't want to lose a good young linebacker today by keeping too many quarterbacks. But if I'm them, I would try to get as many possible options as you can going into camp and get through the season, because we know quarterbacks can get hurt. And I don't believe the Kyle Shanahan system gets them hurt. I think Garoppolo is an injury-prone quarterback, so that was part of this. It was him multiple times. And you talk about the quarterbacks that they've lost over the years, and now they're not going to have Garoppolo. So you see what you got from there. I do think you have to build yourself up depth, though. You have to make sure that if you get to your 4th quarterback in an NFC Championship game, you kind of like that guy. Instead of saying, I don't know what we're going to do here. What the hell are we going to do? That was a very real thing, and I would not risk that happening again if I possibly could, if I'm them.
Tim Kawakami with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Tim, let's do something real crazy at the quarterback position and actually assume health. Mayoko said yesterday that a healthy Purdy, you could not pitch to the locker room that he would not be the starter. If everybody's healthy, do you see it clear-cut, the pecking order at quarterback?
No, it's not even a question. It's not even, if he'd not gotten hurt in that game and they'd lost, he is the starter going into every drill, every session, everything they do in the offseason. And unless something crazy happens into practice 1 of training camp, it's not even a question. He, essentially, beat out, Nate Sudfeld and sort of beat out Trey Lance in training camp. He couldn't because they'd invested so much in Lance, but I think at some point Shanahan was thinking, I'd like to play this guy. And then they brought Jimmy back, and then Lance got hurt, and all these other things happened. But I think the proof is in the victories. The proof is in the way that Shanahan called the games. The proof's in the way the team kind of exploded around Purdy, 35 points a game, whatever it was, in his starts. This is real. And if he's healthy, we don't know. That's what we don't know. But if he's healthy, he's the starting quarterback first drill of training camp. I don't have any question in my mind.
Tim, difficult question, but I know you're up for it. What's wrong with the Warriors defense?
They don't have as good defensive players. Gary Payton II, and some guys are a little older. Wiggins has not been the same since he's been back from his injury. I just think it's personnel. I think some of it could be attributed to losing Mike Brown, who was the defense coordinator last year, now with the Kings. Although he doesn't have the right personnel there. And look what's happened to the Kings. The offense is incredible. That defense isn't so good. I just don't. As you age, this core is aging. There are real things happening, and they don't have kind of the secondary players that could just go cover the best guy, go cover Jamal Murray. They didn't have Draymond last night, and that's their Jokic stopper, essentially. He never completely stops them, but they can just say, Draymond, you got Jokic, and everyone else gets their own guy. They can't do that when Draymond is not in the game. They don't have the personnel isn't as good. It just isn't. And they were counting on Moody and Wiseman and Kuminga to fill major roles, and only one of them is doing that this season. And I'm a Kuminga guy, but he's up and down, and he's really good on the ball, but he's not so good in team defense. Moody is essentially, Kerr has basically shown that he's not going to play him in any important minutes. And Wiseman is even further behind. So they're not as good. The talent of the roster isn't as good, and I think it's showing in a lot of ways. Sometimes the great Hall of Fame players can just elevate, and we've seen that in a few times. And, beating Boston, beating Memphis, the key times when they've really decided they got to win these games. But in the night-by-night kind of NBA marathon, they're just not good enough they don't have the right personnel to match up with these really good offenses. They just don't have that GP2. They don't have, Wantas Anderson. Go throw him in there in a third quarter when you really need them in January. They don't have those guys. They thought they did, or they were hoping they did. They don't have them. And they're, as their Hall of Fame vets get a little older and a little bit slower, and Jordan Poole is not going to be anybody's defensive stopper ever. I think we're seeing it in a night-by-night thing. Do I think they could get better for the playoffs? Yeah, I think they could. I don't know. And Wiggins is the huge key here. The Wiggins, this season was looking okay. After a terrible start, season was looking okay when Wiggins was playing really well. Then Wiggins gets hurt or doesn't play well, there's just a hole in what they do. And if he comes back and starts playing well, I think they'll look a lot more like the Warriors we're used to, at least the Warriors of last year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Tim. Thanks so much, man. Great to have you.
All right, good talking to you guys.
Yep, there he goes.